I'd like to thank my guest coming today, and which his name is Jonathan Purdue from the Catholic Charity Diocese of Stockton Environmental Justice Program, talking about and taking, no, about environmental justice regional, local, and state level. Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well,
Really love to be on the show, so I'm really glad you guys are able to work on
work. So
bringing
tell
some.
me what new information you could come and talk about that the local people want to know about the organization you're working for.
So the last time I was on here, I talked a little bit briefly about Catholic Charities and the programs we provide. From there, what I can add is we're doing a lot of stuff, especially during the summertime, because it's a new yearly period. We have a lot of priorities working on general plans for cities. We're dealing with 3 cities right now working on general plans. We're really working on trying to bring in the housing issue, the housing crisis that's happening in California. We're really trying to provide workshops and resources for those who are with immigration and stuff, and we're really trying to provide help to those who really want to be empowered on environmental justice issues like water quality, for example, and air quality. Then we have also the Rise Stockton, which happened, I believe I mentioned it last time, from the TCC grant Stockton got last year. The TCC grant was $100,000, and it was just a planning grant. So we had a year to basically plan out what we were wanting to do, and now it's really coming down to it, to where it's the final stages, to where we really get the community members involved to bring it forth to city council, and then we're hoping from city council they're willing to apply for the implementation grant. From Governor Newsom's budget amendment, we found out that the TCC grant, which is it's a state grant, and any city in the state could apply for it. It just has to make sure you have the capacity and the people to work on it. And from that grant, now you do the planning grant portion, you plan it out, and then you see if you can do the implementation grant. The implementation grant, we found out, was at the time when he did his April amendment, I believe it was $45 million or $60 million.
Okay.
Right now, I think it's lower than that, but it's still a big chunk. And so it's one of those things where what can we provide in the TCC grant? The TCC stands for Transformative Climate Communities, and it basically allows the cap and trade dollars that are coming in from the polluters and the violators, the big businesses and the big corporations in California that are polluting a lot of carbon emissions. They put themselves basically on a tax, and through the tax they have a amount of carbon they're able to emit. Once they reach that threshold, they have to get basically taxed on every so often every carbon they emit. That money that goes into that tax goes back into the communities, reinvests back into it, called the Transformative Climate Communities, and that's what's considered the cap and trade. You have a cap, you hit a cap on the carbon, and then you trade it back and reinvest it back into the community. And the Strategic Growth Council, which is a governmental agency, handles the fundings for that. So we were able to get the funding from Strategic Growth Council last year, and we have 7 partners working on the TCC planning grant, and we're really looking forward to applying for the implementation. From there, our main focus was working on the downtown Stockton and the South Stockton areas. Those are ones that have been hugely affected by disadvantaged, injustices, affected by red zoning, with the housing affected by, pushing away from grocery stores. So there's not there really aren't that full out fleshed grocery stores that are complete over there. Like, you really don't see like a good grocery store in walking distance for people. They have to drive pretty much downtown or even also North Stockton. It's not, you could clearly see a difference between the distances between the different grocery stores.
You mean the large chains of
Yeah,
store like
exactly.
Safeway, Lucky,
Walmart, yep.
Walmart, all that
Mhm.
stuff. Okay.
It's not like what you see in South Stockton, unfortunately. You have the mom and pop shops, unfortunately, but those, because they're mom and pops, the only way for them to stay afloat is, unfortunately, isn't groceries, it's just liquor stores. And there are actually laws now. I mean, we were able to find out through one of the bylaw, or for what one of the laws, that for a grocery store to basically be, or for a liquor store to basically be a grocery store, considered to be a grocery store, is that it provides the necessity bread, milk, and eggs. I'm not sure if that's been updated or not, but that's something that needs to be really looked into, because those are actually the food groups that really aren't nutritious enough. I mean, you really need more than just your basic carbs and your milk and your eggs. You need more than that.
So in other words, they put a minimum standard on liquor store to sell egg, milk, and whatever it is, right?
They need to provide more. We feel like we need to provide more of a actual grocery store chain. And unfortunately, when you're working with, city, you're also working with developers, you really try to push for, where's the reinvestment back into South Stockton. And I think the only way to do it is by really showcasing the need from the people that need it, really allowing the community members, showing that they need it, and explaining, how they want to get this project through. So a project could be, either a development of a grocery store, or development of a garden, or development of solar panels, a solar farm. It's just different green projects that they'd love to, they would want to have. But I know grocery stores is a big, huge topic. And so, when I'm talking with people in Stockton, some of them, like, you can see a difference between the shifts of priorities. North Stockton, when you're talking with someone from North Stockton, you explain there needs to be a, grocery stores in South Stockton. Well, they go on to explain, well, the reason why there's not going to be any grocery stores is because what grocery store owner wants to have a store there if it's probably just going to be trashed anyway. And of course, that's just blatant racism. And unfortunately, that does happen at times. There are some fears that there's going to be crime, mostly in South Stockton and then North Stockton. Across the board, what it comes down to is that there's not a lot of advantages for those in South Stockton, so they have to move up to North Stockton just to get what they need, their basic necessities. What I think what they really do need is just an equitable approach to provide the base necessities for those who are basically down in their luck, that really do need those resources.
Okay, let me ask you this question. I have noted that North Stockton and Stockton have lack of different issue right now.
Mm-hmm.
I found that North Stockton have lack of hospital, because when you live in North Stockton, they have to commute all the way to French Camp Hospital,
Mm-hmm.
or St. Joseph Hospital and Denver Hospital, and which
Mm-hmm.
is all in the center of Stockton. And when you're having a heart attack or a stroke, you're not going to have time to get your medical treatment there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an issue right there that I hear people talking about. There's no lack of hospital over there.
Yeah, I think the only closest, I guess it's considered, what do you call it? I guess a clinic would be Lodi Memorial. That's there now. It's Adventist Health over by Trinity Parkway.
Oh yeah, okay. But at the hospital, or at the clinic,
It's
urgent care.
I think it's an urgent care.
And then okay, well that's good to know for people that are talking about it. But also, and I know that if you get off on Downey, there is a Food for Less,
Mm-hmm.
and I know there's a lot of commercial owner are prejudiced, a large chain that will establish Food for Less.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's owned by Safeway. I think
Mm-hmm.
so. But there needs to be more, like you say, around French Camp, around that area where we have access. The closest one to go to Target is Lathrop,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to commute. And I'm sorry that they need to be represented more.
Mm-hmm.
That's something we need. Somebody who represents their constituent regarding environmental justice. And that's the key issue right there. Is it could be can they be bought by people that are don't willing to change that particular in South Stockton? You know what I mean?
I really think it with when I was able to talk to a developer looking for property in Manteca. He was all the way from Indiana, and when I talked to him, I was like, how are ways to influence or some sort of way encourage property developers to want to build there or build at a certain area where it's heavily disadvantaged. How can we do, what's the process like? And he explained how of course it's always the money aspect. Are they going to make money out of investing into a spot? And unfortunately I feel like when you want to build something, for me, if I was a millionaire, if anything, I really wouldn't think about the money aspect. If I was able to make money back from it, really, I would. With any of these sort of situations, you really have to sacrifice a lot of your projects because you really can't expect a lot of money coming back to you. I really think they need to care more about the goodness of people, really provide the necessities that people really need that are, really in low income areas. But unfortunately, with anything, it's always a business to them. And so when it comes to a business, the money needs to come from somewhere. I really wish there were ways that the developers could work with the city. There are ways where they provide, tax breaks, which Amazon does a very good job doing. But unfortunately, with Amazon, it's not that in itself is not a good company because they don't provide full-time staff anymore. It used to be where, the work that they provide, it was always full-time, you get benefits and all that. Now they provide basically short-term jobs. And with those short-term jobs, they don't provide any health insurance. They don't provide any other sort of coverage, dental insurance or anything, because it's basically you're working small hours and you're not working full-time.
In other words, they're cutting back. They don't want to pay insurance.
Sure.
They don't want to make pay benefit because they want part-timer, short-term, temporary. Because I see a lot of people, like you said, they need to donate some kind of property that will help the community without worrying about profiteering.
Mm-hmm.
I think they need to give a chance because pretty much people think that the county level that are run by the sheriff, people look at because we don't have city police there, but the county need to work on the supervisor area, the board of supervisor, and they're the one to be able to have that chunk of money. You know what I mean? As far as building, what do you call redevelopment program for people who have marketing. It will help develop jobs. It will help help it with the community. I mean, think of those projects. They don't have to necessarily worry about profit. You know what I mean? As far as just make it and they'll do the job itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's more like a good example would be the Mono Clinic. Have you the Mono Clinic, right? It's a big organization, basically national clinic. It's a hospital.
It's like Kaiser?
Kaiser.
Okay.
Similar like Kaiser, but
okay.
They're none in California.
Okay.
They're more like northeast side. With the Mono Clinic, when they were starting from the later 1800s and growing up, their motto was always patient over profit. And I feel like that's one of those things that really needs to be pushed as some sort of words of wisdom is
that's pretty good.
Providing, don't worry about the profit, worry about basically the care for good, care for those who really need it. Because that's for me, that's more of a profit, is making sure that those who are down on their luck or those who are disadvantaged are able to be up at a level that allows them to be able to live comfortably instead of worrying about their next paycheck and having to worry about their kids not getting jobs, or their kids being worried about not wanting to go to school because unfortunately it's a toxic environment at home because it's always a stressful environment. It all ties, it relates with everyone. And I think also, we're talking about the housing, huge issues with housing. Unfortunately, I want to fill in a project or plug in a project that one of my teachers from high school, she gave me this. She told me there was this idea that she does like a situational segment that she does with her class. She asked them, say, for example, you had a family in Stockton and you were making minimum wage. Figure out a place in Stockton where you can live basically comfortably and you'd be able to afford it on a monthly basis. There's actually no place right now where you can work with one minimum wage job today. In Stockton specifically, there's none. You would have to work at least 2 to 3 jobs, and then your husband or your significant other would have to work at 2 other jobs just so you guys can make ends meet, and you also have 2 kids. There's just no way. And I feel like if the state and regionally the county looks at ways that they can do something about that, because I feel like that's a huge eye opener for me, is that people can't really afford it. And I know we provide, the housing authority provides the Section 8 housing, inclusionary housing. But I really think affordable housing really needs to be a big topic, because if you think about it, environmental justice, we talk about air quality, we talk about water quality. Housing is really the underlying, basically, issue that affects everything across the board. I think, for example, you have things that are happening in San Francisco. The housing market is so expensive in San Francisco that people can't afford it. They can't afford to live. So they're living in, Lathrop and Manteca area. Well, because that's affecting Lathrop and Manteca residents that usually lived there, like before those people that moved in, that causes the housing market, the basic housing market, to go up. And so it causes their monthly payments for their house to go up. And that affects them. But then you also have, of course, those who can't afford living in San Francisco, but they're still driving over to San Francisco. So that increases transportation. It increases carbon emissions from those cars. It increases, commute times, vehicles driving all out on the roads on Tracy and over by, the Altamont and so on. And that causes a lot of carbon emissions. I really think we need to start pushing on housing so those people could be able to afford to live there. I also think they need to start focusing on providing mass transit, which is the high-speed rail. I did digging. I looked into it, and you really, if you think about it, with mass transit, with the high-speed rail that unfortunately people have their opinions on, it really will change culture. It'll change more than just travel culture. It'll change work culture. It'll change living culture. The reason why is because it's going to allow people to want to travel more, but they'll also want them to be more safe going into a mass transit sort of area. They'll be able to save time, and they'll also be able to travel into different cities that they didn't think they'd be able to travel through. The one they were trying to do from Bakersfield all the way to LA, I think I still am in support of that project, because I feel like it's a really big, it could have been a really big potential, just in general, just big innovative project that really would change the United States, because it, for example, you have China, or you have Japan, you have all these other, countries that have these big, powerful, high-speed rails, trains. And the thing is, it's just because the people utilize it. They utilize it because they know it's going to get to where they need to go to. And the more people they do it, the more money that gets back into the project, the more emphasis that can be more put for more transportation projects. So say, for example, we go from Bakersfield to LA, or now they're trying to do from San Francisco to Bakersfield or Fresno. There could be potential where it can connect all the way from San Francisco to Fresno to LA. Wow. And think about it. I mean, from San Francisco to Fresno, they would be able to save 2 hours or something like that, or an hour and a half. And then from LA to Fresno, it would save 3 hours, 3.5 hours, maybe 4 hours. But other than that, you could do so much with that, and it wouldn't cost that much, and you would save more money than driving, of course, or flying. You would, with high-speed rail, it would be fully electric, so you wouldn't be emitting any carbon emissions. Um, I think it's just one of those things. If we break down to it, we look at the money, but we look at the full what comes out of it, the outcomes and the evaluation portion of it. It would basically be a huge changer, big, huge game changer, and it's something that I really hope California still continues to look at. But of course, unfortunately, you do have to look at other things as well. With us, we do also have issues with fire. We have issues with, like for the campfire, for example, with the campfire, that's huge problem. So those monies have to go to safety. We have a huge issue with the groundwater, for example. So the groundwater right now is at a threshold. It's lower than its threshold that it's supposed to be at. So the state of California has made this SGMA, which is the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, which was signed by Governor Jerry Brown, 2 years ago. And so with that, it pushed for working with the water districts in the different sections of, the groundwater authority groups, and finding ways to be sustainable by 2040. It really does take all the water districts to work together. I think we have 17 from the tip of Lodi all the way from down to from Ripon. We have 17 water districts, and so those water districts really want to work together on it, but they want to make sure that there's no bad actors, that everyone's going to do their part. And it's really just right now they're really fleshing out, what's the criteria, how the planning's going to start. And actually they're at the moment to where they're trying to finalize the plan, because they had a consultant. We were part of the stakeholders, the working group. We're the voice for the Catholics, and so we really tried to be the voice for those who are disadvantaged. And there were talks, people were wondering, what's going on with groundwater? Why isn't some areas in Stockton that have to travel to the grocery store just to get water? And those are one of the things that really are eye-opening. Is you have all these issues happening in the San Joaquin County with like water. So you have people with not clean water. Now with those clean waters, they have to go out and go to the closest grocery store. Well, unfortunately, with the closest grocery store, they don't have a car. And so because they don't have a car, they have to use the bus. And because they have to wait for the bus, they have to basically travel back and forth to get the waters that they need, and they have to carry it. That stuff it gets hectic. It's stressful. And the thing is, I feel like if we start to look at, really dig deep and look at the issues people are having with, living day to day with these, this trauma and these stressful issues, I really think that starts to, people start to realize, start to have, they start to think, maybe there really needs to be something happening in this area. Instead of just worrying about other people, worrying about themselves, they start to worry about other people. And that's for that. And what else do you think?
Well, you hit most of everything in all in one good 45 minutes. I mean, and to me, it's that I'm more concerned about our weather condition.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more concerned that people are careless with fire.
Mm-hmm.
The arson. People are mental. They have to put fire when they're homeless. They have no roof on their head. It really concerns me that we're allowing people who live in the camp that living under the pretty much no concrete but all grassy area, like using fire. That's danger for them and danger for us. That could be it's a safety violation. And people who does like to cause fire, they should, be treated. That's that to me we're killing our own self just by asthma. People have cancer in their lung. They have people breathing bad air quality, And that really concerns me because I have to take an inhaler to go out when I can when the weather's too high, and if it's bad quality, I can't go out. You know what I mean? Because I can't breathe. But definitely it's a lot of smoke. Last year, I mean that was devastating. You know what I mean? Last year, I couldn't even come to the radio station because I see a lot of smoke. You know, I don't know if you've seen it, but it was a lot of far from the Paradise fire. I mean, couldn't do it. You know, but. And that concerns me. And even the housing that you just said, you know, basically the people need, like, the housing authority, our federal government. But yet they only have this certain way of dealing with things, you know, as far like the voucher program. You have at least 90 days to look for housing. If you can't find it within the 90 days, then you lose it. And what happened? You have to go reapply. You have to go on a waiting list, whatever, to get in there. And that's what people are struggling right now. You know, because I have a voucher. It's been I had like 3 days. I've been going around and I haven't found any building for that. So there's completely no rental at all. So I know because I'm a real estate agent. I do property management as well. But people don't want to Section 8 no more because they trash their property. I understand because I've seen it, you know, and they don't, because, you know, to me that's their concern, because that's their property, that's their investment, and that's their income livelihood. But yet people, you know, take things for granted and they go, oh, they're slumlord and things like that. So they're not, but I mean, that's something that really concerns me, that housing is very limited. But there's a lot of housing that are condemned. If you go to the downtown, if you go to Park, if you go to Main Street, you go to Ento, and you see those they're all boarded up. But those houses for rent, and there are developers too. You know what I mean? They all developed that. They have a tax write-off if they don't invest. If they don't have anybody there every year, they have a tax write-off. It's a loss though because you didn't find nobody to rent out. So there's a lot of housing that are boarded in District 5. Are you in District 5?
I believe so.
Okay, in District 5, there's a lot of them. If you go to our Fremont Street and you go down the level of Madison, all that street, and all of that area, it's all, you know, boarded up. They should be rented out. And I have seen people come out of that building, boarded up. And I'm like, wow, there's somebody living there, you know what I mean? And you don't even know if they have electricity or not, you know what I mean? But that is something that concerns me too, you know? Why are there enough property that already there to utilize it, you know what I mean? Same thing with South Stockton. I'm very concerned about South Stockton because the only chain of store they really have is Food for Less. And they need to build more chains franchise. People like in Danny's, make sure they have grocery store, like you said. They have retail, in general, marketing and Target, all that stuff. That would make instead of having coffee shop all over. Pharmacy, that's another thing, like Walgreens. I mean, that'd be a good way. But at the same time, it's like there's always an issue that pros and cons. So tell me, as you, Jonathan, what can you do? What event are that going to happen to make that people aware of that?
Well, right now, with one event happening in Manteca, because as I said, we really are working on general plans, and a general plan is basically a city has to really update what their priorities for the next couple of years, like 10 to 20 years down the road, is going to be about. You know, what are they going to be developing in terms of, you know, housing. The housing element is separate to the general plan, but it's pretty much.
Okay, hold on. Before you go there, what is the difference? The people don't know what's the difference between housing element and the general plan. They should be together, but you say it's separate.
The reason why they're separate is because the housing in itself, it's a bigger beast. With the housing element, you have to deal with a lot of different associations. You have to deal with the different amounts of people, go through different amounts of hoops because you have to make sure that they're willing to provide, inclusionary housing or Section 8 housing. And that in itself is another area that really will take longer than actually doing a general plan update.
Okay.
A general plan in itself, you hire consultants and they do a year-long. It could be years or 2 years. It really just depends on how much they're willing to expand. With Stockton, theirs was like a year and a half, and from there they worked on providing, and Stockton did a really good job in providing transparency to those who are, who want to know a little bit more about the general plan stuff. They included a lot of partners around locally in Stockton, from, STAN, for example, the housing organization. You also have Catholic Charities, but you also had public health advocates that works on the nutrition portion of it. And then you had other stakeholders. And so with those stakeholders, we worked to provide outreach materials to those in our neighborhoods so they could come to these sort of work. They really did a really good job in providing, resources on what a general plan is about. And I wish I could bring it, but the general plan itself, it's like 200 plus pages long, but it's a very good, easy read sort of document. Now for Manteca's general plan at the moment, they're still working on basically figuring out the preferred land use map. I believe it was 2.5 or 3 months ago when I was going to a city council meeting. They joined city council and planning commission, and it was during the time where they were basically trying to figure out their land use map. And the land use map basically shows, exactly where everything is at overall. So city limits, what's a city limit? What's considered county limits? They looked at what type of housing is in these areas. So is it low density residential, medium density residential, or is it high density residential? Low density is basically the suburban houses. So basically, single family homes. Medium density residential are basically those that are basically like complexes where homes are, or duplexes. And then high density residential are those that are basically apartments. So they mostly built up. And then there are those that are commercial mixed use. And commercial mixed use are those that, you probably see a lot in San Francisco, where they have a store on the bottom portion of it, but then they have apartments above.
Like the Miracle Mile on
Exactly.
when you go to S-Mart, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So those are commercial mixed use. And the reason why commercial mixed use is such a good utilization of space and, money is that, you're not expanding outwards, you're expanding upward. And when you're expanding upwards, of course, you have to deal with, the fire issues and stuff. So you take that into consideration, but you're not worrying about sprawling and pushing out a lot of resources. You're pushing up. And so because you're pushing up, really nothing's going to get out of the way. There's no planes you have to worry about. There's no birds, or there's no, but when you're expanding across the way horizontally, you really have to push for, sidewalks. You have to expand your sidewalks. Maybe you want to provide, trees. Maybe you don't. Maybe that's when they're expanding across the way, they're going to have to take out some land or some trees out. That's why we really trying to emphasize on expanding up. And so with this general plan, right now, it really does need some work, because before they really were trying to emphasize on pushing on low density residential. And because they're pushing on low density residential, has a tendency of sprawl. So what sprawl means is basically when you're starting to focus on one area and you want to start investing more land in a given area, say for example North Stockton. North Stockton wasn't North Stockton before 40 or 50 years ago or 60 years ago. It was basically farmland. Well, with the money that they had, they started expanding even more in North Stockton, and because of that, there wasn't a lot of basic focus on downtown and South Stockton, because they knew there's going to be more push for high income or middle income residents living in North Stockton, because the housing, of course, was like $100,000, $200,000 for a house. people would be able to expand over in North Stockton.
But you know, that time when I was there at the realtor, that when they had a lot of development, I mean, really, there was a whole bunch of it that was like, it's like you had a lotto. Like there was like limited people buying houses from the North Stockton and toward up north by, I think it's right by Walmart area, and there was a lot of bidder. I mean, people were willing to pay $400,000 and they have a loan, a very loan, and that's when everything the balloons started popping up and they started losing their house. And that's when in 2000, I think it was 2014, 2015 that the real estate went into recession.
I think that was 2008, 2013.
See, that's pretty wide, and people forgot about that. So.
It's and that's why with that you start expanding more houses. There's more focus on that. They want to expand more the services. Now that you're providing houses over there, now you need to be able to allocate services for those that are living there. And so they provide, of course, shopping markets. They provide stores, retail stores over there, and there starts to be basically not really a focus on the southern parts of the city. For Manteca, for example, there is a huge focus on, the lower part of Manteca, which has, Bass Pro Shops, that has the, I believe it's a movie theater, that have the, what is it? You have, Target.
Okay, before I go there, because we're almost limiting our time, but I'm gonna get you back. But one thing I would think that the reason why Manteca are getting a lot of people coming from Stockton, because the movie is only $5 every Tuesday. And if you come over, if you go to any Stockton here, you have to pay $12. The matinee is only $9. But people are willing to go out for that area. And who gets the money? The people that are in Manteca, in the county, that in San Joaquin. That's where they're go. They're gonna go to places where they're gonna get the most of their buck. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And that's how the business are, and that's what the general plan is. That how much money are they gonna invest without so much they're getting something profit for people could enjoy. And that's what I noticed. That Stockton is very expensive here because people have to travel out to get for their family, so.
Family fun sort of stuff. Yeah. Manteca does. I mean, they used to have the Manteca water slides. They, but they just got passed where they're trying to provide another, the project, which is I forgot what it was called, but basically a water resort.
Oh, water resort. Okay. But it's indoor, right?
Indoor. It's indoor, and so they're trying to provide that basically as a. There's only one other one that's over down south of California, Southern California. And so this would be the second one in California. And they're pretty big. They're all across North America. But with Manteca, there really is, it really does seem like there's a push for sprawl. And so we're really trying to bring in people's concerns and issues about increase in housing for low density residential. People want apartments. People do want to start pushing upwards. People want to start pushing for affordable housing, but it's what developers and how is that going to work with Manteca's current, economic climate. They have Lathrop and Manteca, which is the industrial warehouses. They're trying to push for industrial warehouses, and they have the push for the parking lot for the trucks. Before it used to have like 140. Currently it holds 140. Well, Planning Commission just passed to where they want to provide a parking a truck stop that holds 400, and because it holds 400, that increases, of course, truck idling, but it also increases more trucks traveling on the roads, on certain roads, and that causes truck traffic. Because it causes truck traffic, it causes carbon emissions. The freight trucks carry black carbon, which is pretty toxic, and there are folks that really don't care for it because they don't want it. You have a senior living area, or it's like a area for 55 and over senior community. You have some schools that are about 1.5 miles away, and these folks voice their concerns at the last week's city council, and they really don't want it. and there really needs to be a working relationship with City Council and Planning Commission on really trying to find ways where they could provide for these industries their fully sustainable jobs, or not just some sort of jobs where it's a temporary sort of thing.
Okay, and okay, before there's gonna be our last setup our show right now. So tell me, how can I get in touch with you?
So I'm gonna write it on the Facebook post right after this. But the flyer, basically, we're gonna have on August 26, 2019. It is a Saturday, but the reason why it's on a Saturday is because we wanted to provide a space for people to be able to come to these for these meetings. It's going to be in the morning, so it's not going to be too hot. We know some people can't make it to these meetings because they're in the evenings and they're not available during those times because people work, 2 jobs throughout the week. So we want to provide one on Saturday, August 26th. It's going to be at St. Anthony's cafeteria. So it's St. Anthony's Catholic Church. It's a really big space. It can hold over 50 plus people. There is going to be food. There's going to be translations available, interpreters, Spanish and English. We are going to provide basically a training on
what time?
It's going to be from 10 to 1:30. It's basically going to be a space for people to train. We're going to basically train you guys, or provide resources on, how to tie in environmental justice, any work that you guys do, to get empowered to be able to, provide public comments at city council meetings or planning commission meetings.
Right.
Really understand, your guys' lives at stake, your quality of life is at stake, and that's what environmental justice is, that we take in consideration people's quality of life from both spectrums. You could be liberal, conservative, whatever it is. No matter what, people want clean drinking water and clean air.
Perfect.
So yeah, definitely go to it. I'll provide more information on that at the Facebook thing.
All right. Thank you, Jonathan,
Thank
for
you, guys.
coming
Thank you.
and gave us a lot of input, a lot of insight that we need to hear. Thanks for coming. I hope you come back again, and we can cover more stuff that you're providing. And hopefully, when the events come closer, you could come and bring about what happened then. Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching the Vigil show, and have a wonderful day. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.